My camera up. Ah,
I love April Fools and the idea of playing practical jokes. This year, going to work, I was thinking about what I could do, and I had this idea. I could walk into my boss and say, "I've had it. I quit." Yet she just had two employees quit. There's been some tension with things. So I decided maybe that's not a good idea. Have you ever had a really fun April Fool's Day joke or prank you've played? The best I've ever done um, is my all-time favorite. It was, oh goodness, 20 years ago. I think we were on our way home from St. Louis, our long car rides in our whatever minivan we had at the time, with about an 8 and a 4-year-old in the car. And our son had papers. I guess he had things that kept him busy, and he was a very kind of sitting, writing kind of kid. So the side pocket of the door had just tons of papers. You remember that, Don? It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
overflowing, right? So he fell asleep on the way home, and somewhere I got this idea to play a prank on him. And I wrote April Fools in a paper and stuffed it in the middle of the pocket. And we got home, and he woke up, and I said, "Harrison, we got pulled over by the cops while you were asleep. And they wanted to cite us for an excess paper violation. And we have so much time that we've got to get this cleaned up, or they're going to give us a ticket." He was so gullible. He believed me. And he's frantically cleaning up the paper. If I remember right, I had to eventually pull that April Fool's paper out because he thought he was taking it so seriously. And I was dying inside because I'm not good at keeping a straight face and doing this. And he's not gullible enough to pull that kind of prank on him anymore. But
Well, I think we've done a few here and there. I think Abby has pulled a few on him or something like
yeah,
that. But
I just, he pays attention to everything. We tried to have a surprise party for him, and the only way we pulled it off is because he thought it was a surprise party for his girlfriend, and she thought it was a surprise party for him
that's true.
because
Yeah.
he just notices everything. But he's trying to think of other things around April Fool's Day. But, it's spring. So, hello, everyone. This is Gina,
And this is Don, and this is with Focused Healthy Family, and today's podcast is number
and this is
220.
Sunshine, who's eating things on my lap.
And the podcast today is last podcast. Oop.
April Fools!
So today we're talking about spring and all the fun things that come with spring. And
Spring is sprung, the grass is riz. I wonder where the birdies is. That's what my dad used to say.
yeah, let's go back. Let me get back to my poem, my not my poems yet, but my jokes. We got a couple of them. Uh, Gina, what do you call a group of rabbits hopping away from you?
Um, Hop along Cassidy. I don't
A receding hairline.
know.
And April showers bring, if April showers bring May flowers, what do May flowers bring?
um, oh, they brought the pilgrims.
Okay, fine. Spoil it for me here. Uh, and here's another one. What do you get when you cross a tulip with a dog?
A tulip with a dog. What do you get?
Cauliflower.
A cauliflower.
Ah, well, today I thought instead of I gotta turn my volume down a little bit, I think. Um, I'm gonna instead of doing a um what do we call it? Help me.
A tip.
The tip, there you
He's
go.
going to read a poem.
And this is a poem from these are from fifth graders that wrote some of the well, there's different ages in it because our daughter's actually in this poem too, but this one is about spring. So I thought I'd read it. Spring, it's when everything starts blooming. Everything is going to be beautiful, I'm assuming. It's when nature comes out. That's what it's all about. It's when the wind blows and the flowers show. It's when the sun is bright. You may see a kite. It's when children play outside and when birds glide. There are many wonderful things about spring. It's almost my favorite thing. This is by Jude Lockhart in grade 5,
And that book was published in
2013.
2013. So it was some kind of contest our daughter entered, and then they published the poems from it.
It has a beautiful poem in here. I don't know if we want to read it.
Um, we could, or we could save it for
We could save
another
it for another
time.
day. Well, I think we
To
might have read it on we did a couple of years ago, we did one about Olive and all that, when Olive passed. But anyway, now we're back to,
everything spring. Did you get an Easter basket? So I know not everyone celebrates Easter, and yet to me, the idea of rebirth, starting new, starting fresh, and like that poem talks about, yet it's also a time of allergies. And in North Carolina, the pollens come early. They come in March and they march right in. And if you have seasonal allergies, you're not a fan of the month of March. Uh, we're going to the zoo tomorrow.
yep.
And our oldest has the worst seasonal allergies, and he is hoping the rain is going to wash some of the pollens away so he can enjoy himself as we walk around the zoo.
Well, we got all kinds of holidays that show up in the springtime.
There
I,
are a lot of holidays.
yeah, I did a little research on it. Of course, we always have Easter, which is actually today. We're recording this on Easter, and Mother Days comes up in May 10th. Um, Memorial Day comes up May 25th.
Before that, we have our anniversary on May 14th. Don and I will be celebrating
Yay! 32 years, I think.
2006 minus 1994.
What did it come up with?
I think it's 32 years.
So yeah, I'm pretty good at that.
So feel free to celebrate with us on May 14th. We also celebrate May the 4th be with you. And it's not because of Star Wars, it's because that's when
My first rebirth.
Don's rebirth, his first heart attack, and he pretty much left the earth and was brought back. And we celebrate it as a rebirth
I,
day.
I couldn't wait for Cinco de Mayo, which is the next
We
day.
called it Quattro de Mayo, and then everybody started talking about May the 4th being, May the 4th be with you and all this. So it's our private little family holiday we call Quattro de Mayo.
We also have St. Patrick's Day on March 17th.
Yes, that's behind us.
Passover is April 2nd. Ramadan, it begins in February, but it ends in yeah, March 18th. And there's one called Holy, a festival of colors celebrating love, joy, and arriving of spring. That runs March 13th through the 14th. Earth Day comes up the 22nd.
Of
Uh,
April?
yep. So we can build the earth back. Um, and of course, we have first first day of spring is March 20th. National Gardening Day. This is time. Get out, get the garden going. We got to get ours going too.
I
It's
have
start.
been working on that.
It,
Is there a
yes, you.
mouse in your pocket? I'm the one who does the gardening.
Hey, I went in there and weeded it, and
When did you do that?
last time we cut the grass. All right.
I do
Anyway,
gardening.
and then there's National Walking Day on April 1st. Also, Arbor Day comes in April 17th. So we got a lot of good holidays coming in the springtime, and it's that time to regenerate it. They I was looking and talking about rebooting too. One of the things I do in my process is rebooting the brain. Well, it's time to reboot ourselves. It doesn't matter what age you are.
And as much as I love spring, and I love how early spring comes in North Carolina compared to when I grew up north in Pennsylvania and Ohio, we have spring forward, the start of daylight savings time, which is my least favorite day of the year because we lose an hour of sleep. I love when it ends and we gain an hour, but it's kind of, I was talking with a coworker about how silly this is and why do we still have this daylight savings time. It was started to conserve energy
It was Jimmy Carter, I believe, was the one that started, if I remember right.
and do we really need to do that?
It's,
Is it really doing it? And that we need to conserve energy. Is it really doing anything to help with that?
yeah.
Because the person I was talking to, we talked about there are areas that don't honor it, so that you're in a different time zone.
There's one in Indiana, this little spot in Indiana that
And
doesn't.
then someone talked about Hawaii because they don't need to because daylight's like a lot. Um, and so it's kind of a funny thing that, not only do you have, well, Indiana's right around the time zone where the
The,
time zone change. Is that what you call it? Yeah.
there's a
Yeah,
term
yeah,
for
yeah.
it.
From Eastern time zone to Central.
Central. Yep.
So you've got a difference in an hour, but then you've also got a place that doesn't follow daylight savings. And so I imagine maybe 2 hours if you go this way or that way, difference. Just, anyways, I just thinking about it, it kind of feels silly that we do that.
Yeah. Well, but it is a time now to start getting. We've had the winter freeze, which really down here we kind of went up and down on temperatures here, but you got to get out of the doldrums of being at home or stuck at home. Now's the time to get out, greet people, talk to people, take walks, um, just get out, get out and see other people.
Don's been hibernating all winter.
Yep.
Or he wants the rest of us to get out of the house. I'm not sure which.
Well, that might be the other thing. You
And
laugh.
and
Who was joking?
you weren't joking, I know. Um, and so spring, I made you lose your train of thought. What comes along with spring and how it affects us? And it's some people have seasonal affective disorder, and when it's darker, we have longer, less daylight through the winter, right? That's what the spring and summer, all the equinoxes are about that and the daylight and that we're getting. Um, and so we're starting to get days with more light in it than darkness. And that can affect people. The cold, the being inside. And so we spring forward. I've lost my train of thought.
Well,
It's because I ate too much candy today.
yeah. Well, they talk about, and calling people, connecting with people again. A lot of times in the wintertime, we don't always call other people and get involved with other people. It's a time, and sometimes you got to call other people that don't want to, that don't really like to speak out. It so it might not hurt to call them and get something going with them. Um,
I think about allergies, as I've mentioned. Another funny story, maybe not so funny for Harrison, but so I said the allergy season comes early in North Carolina. It comes in March. We have heavy pollen. The beautiful Bradford pear trees, those with seasonal allergies, they hate the trees. It really affects, I know, our son. And it was probably mid-April or something, or maybe May, just gotten through the bad pollen season here. And we took a trip up to Pennsylvania to visit my brother and his kids. And it was just beginning up there. And I felt so bad for him because he'd just gotten through this allergy season only to find himself um,
in
in,
it
in the
again.
middle of it again when we traveled to a different area. So spring arrives differently, in different parts of the country as well as different parts of the world, right? The southern hemisphere kind of has the reverse thing going on with summer and winter and the daylight hours. And so, like, we bought this house and it has windows. And I remember we looked at a lot of older houses and some of them had windows, but there was no screens. And I'm like, the idea of windows is you can open them up and there needs to be a screen in it because we certainly have our share of bugs.
Yeah.
And so now we have a house full of windows. Shortly after we moved in, there was a time when I opened a bunch of windows and it started downpouring out of nowhere and it started flooding in the kitchen. And that's the last memory I have of really opening up the windows. Is the rain came so quick and so fast, I had to run around quickly closing all these wonderful windows I had opened up because it was
Are you
just
thinking about the
pouring.
when we had the roof? That time we had the roof?
No, I'm talking about right here in
Oh,
this house,
oh, here.
in this kitchen,
Oh,
and I
okay.
had windows open, and then it just did that downpour where it was kind of coming in sideways, and it was just pouring in through the windows.
Because you remember we had that instance where had they came out to replace the roof
Oh, at the old house.
and
They went to lunch
it
and they
was
didn't
and
cover
it
the
was a
roof.
beautiful day too. And they went to lunch. They had opened up the very top of the roof to put in a vent there, but they hadn't put the vent there and they hadn't done any of that yet. And all that was open. And it, like you said, it
They went
came
to lunch and there was just a downpour.
like sheets of stuff coming down. It was pouring into the ceiling
Well, they
through
were
the
coming to repair the roof because we already had a leak and we
yeah.
already had a leak in our kitchen. So now it just was, and they did come back pretty quickly and they got up there and they covered the roof with the tarp. But yeah, it's just added to our
Well, it came.
leak
It was
problem.
flowing through the windows and everywhere. So yeah.
I don't remember it flowing in through the
Oh yeah, it
windows.
was like pouring through the like I think in the dining area we had in the kitchen. It was coming through there. It was coming through a lot of different places. But they also talk about in this time too. We go through the winter's always kind of when you hit January. You've gone through all the holiday seasons, and you have that kind of can be a little bit depressing in the January, February area. And they talk about now coming into spring, it's a time to kind of not only do the physical things like getting out walking, but maybe looking at what you might be holding on from the past and kind of doing kind of the reboot of the mind, getting open up the mind, you know, um, just kind of looking at what you might be holding on to and finding ways to be able to release that, like let it go.
Sitting here as you're talking about that, thinking about, we celebrate New Year's because it's the start of the year, January 1st, and releasing the old and bringing in the new. And yet it feels more fitting to do this at the beginning of spring, kind of, because as the way the seasons go, things are budding, things are coming new. It feels like a better time to just have a restart than even January 1st, which just is a calendar thing arbitrarily created.
Just when
Why
you
does
look
the new year begin in the middle of winter?
yeah, and you're trying to be happy, but you look outside and it's either snowing or the trees have all
It can be beautiful with the snow.
well, yeah, no, but a
Really
lot of times you
beautiful.
look out and all the things just they're not like you say in spring you got all this revised, things revised,
Things are
coming
growing,
back
the
up,
buds are coming back up.
but
Yes, things are
in wintertime
dormant.
you don't have that,
It's dormant in the winter,
Yes, yes, I like
except for
dormant.
the evergreens that are evergreen.
So what else do we say about spring? What kind of good things are there with spring that we can regenerate ourselves with, after we get out of this winter, this isolation that I have
I texted you some ideas.
right now.
No, I earlier, and I'm looking up the ideas I
Here, let
texted
me
you.
look on my phone while we do. Yeah, not gonna look at my
Well,
phone.
talking about, temperature changes, how it affects our body. You think about spring cleaning. Um, for some reason, I waited till January, February, and I put a bunch of summer shirts away. And the other day it was hot, and I'm like, I feel like I just put those away and I need them already because we've had some really warm days when
Yeah,
I'm doing yard work and I need a tank top. And so, that idea of, okay, it's time to put the scarves and hats away and I can tuck the winter stuff away to make room for the spring and the summer things. And there's something fun about, putting winter stuff away, bringing spring stuff out. It's also a way of minimizing clutter. Uh,
but here in North Carolina, the temperatures go all over the place. It's
it's
one day you have it could be 35 in the morning and 70 by afternoon, and
it tends to be pretty extreme in North Carolina, and if I know other places have seen more of these varying temperatures, and it's become even more extreme, I think, lately. But yes, when we're talking even January, I remember as a kid though having a day in January or maybe February where it was just suddenly really warm for a week, even in Pennsylvania. But yeah, the weather does jump all over the place for definitely a good 6 weeks or more extreme than other times.
well, and you talk about, I was just thinking about what you talk about gardening, and getting into that. That's that's another way of getting yourself grounded.
Oh,
We're talking about kind of refreshing things, and that getting your hands into the dirt and getting your, working with that can really be refreshing to you.
It can. And, I started to talk about seasonal affective disorder, which I don't suffer from that personally, but I do suffer from depression. And getting outside, working in that garden, like I would rather do that than clean anything in the house. Um,
Yeah.
Laundry, there's something satisfying about laundry, but I'd really rather be outside and I'm mowing the yard. And I realize, if I mow every week, it doesn't get as crazy high. And it's like, I like that kind of exercise. Like it feels good to me to be out there in the yard and doing the yard work. And it does affect our mood and our energy. I'm getting physical exercise, I'm getting sunlight. We do get vitamin D through the sun, which is very connected with depression. Um, Check out your vitamin D levels and talk to a special nutritionist about the levels because I think they say 20 is normal. Below that is not, but really, I think we benefit from higher levels. And so, yeah, so what grounds you? What things do you enjoy? And just getting outside, touching the earth is powerful, but also having those things that mean something to you. And with seniors, they've lost loved ones. Um, it can be more difficult for them. Now they can't garden. I work in the senior community and people who used to garden, they can't anymore, whether it's arthritis, whether it's hips, knees bothering them, other medical problems, lung issues where they don't have the endurance to be outside. So, what can you do instead? Small raised garden beds, indoor plants. There are people, I work in a senior independent living that's apartments, and they do have patios. And one woman, she's got all kinds of plants on her patios, and she plants things out there, and so she gets that enjoyment of some level of gardening in a small space. Finding a way to make those things possible, even for people with limitations, and thinking about it for our seniors and realizing how much that affects them. I was talking to someone recently. He's a younger person that moved into our facility in his 60s, and he lived in his own place and had his property. He had a little dog. It was just him and his dog. He'd let the dog out. He'd run around the yard and come back. He walked everywhere to go to the store. And now he's living in this apartment and he's got to take the dog out on a leash to walk, which is fine. But just we talked about the activity level and the change in activity level when you're not living in your own home and walking outside and just doing simple yard work and just taking care of things around the house, that you move into a senior community in a small apartment, they make the meals for you, and now your activity level has just dropped drastically. And we don't even think about that. I see this all the time when people that go through short-term rehab. They've fallen, they're sick for whatever reason, they're in the hospital 3 days, sometimes a lot longer, but even 3 days, go to rehab because they're not quite strong enough to go home, and they think, I'm fine, I can go home. Well, you spend a few days in bed, you're weaker than you
Mhm.
were. Add age to that, add different medical um, issues going on that you have to recover from, and they think, oh, I could do that just fine. If I go home, I can do it just fine. Things are different at home. It's set up. But we don't realize how much it affects our energy level. I don't know how much you remember, Don, when you had your first heart attack. And I
Oh,
remember telling you, it's going to take you a while to build your endurance back. You wound up being in the hospital,
like
it was 12 or 16 days.
16 days, I think.
They lowered your blood pressure so much that every time you went to sit up, it was dropping and you were dizzy. So therefore, you didn't get up out of bed and moving. And then you got some blood clots in your leg, and one thing led to another. And I knew when you came home, it was going to be a lot. To get to a bathroom, you had to go up half a flight of stairs. And
Yeah.
even that was taxing on you. Um, and you were like, oh, wow. And I knew it because I worked with people in that situation. And
Yeah, I remember those times because yeah, I remember at one of the times I think I don't know if I went up on my own or something, but I got up to the top and I thought I was going to pass out, just and
and we're talking six or seven steps. It was a
yeah,
split level, so it was a half a flight of stairs.
and I remember coming back down. I had to get to that chair very quickly and sit down because it was really trying. So yeah, I remember that. That was not fun, but learn and you grow from it, I
We
guess.
even we set you up with a urinal um,
We
to
did that
make
for a while, I think, initially, but
things easier, and got the recliner chair for you and things. So, and you were 52 when that happened. So these are things we need to think about with our seniors and the impact it can have on them and helping them to understand. And you recovered, right? And
mhm,
back to, and even after another heart attack at
yeah,
how old were you at the second one? Um,
that was a year and a half ago, right?
yeah.
So
Um, 66 maybe,
I
something
was
like that.
I might have been 65 because I don't I think I was just getting ready to sign. I don't know. I don't remember, but it was
He was
around that time. Yeah.
66 because when we moved here, he was 65.
Yeah.
So, but thinking about those things, um, and how can we support people? How can we acknowledge these things and thinking about ways to get involved? You might have family members who don't like bugs and don't want to go outside because of bugs. I use some natural bug repellent sprays. One's got citronella oil, one's got lavender, because the bugs seem to like me and they come fast here. It's like the middle of March and I sit on my porch and I'm already getting bit by mosquitoes and things. And for me, I make it part of my lotion routine in the morning to minimize that because I love being outside, but I hate being itchy. And so there are ways that are less harmful to us than the strong chemicals in your typical bug repellents. You can light citronella candles. There's other things you can do. My dad had a bug zapper when we were kids, and it was a bright light basically that would attract the bugs and then it would fry them as they hit it. And it probably killed more moths than anything, which is kind of sad. I'm not sure how many mosquitoes it actually killed, but then I know my sister got the little tennis racket with the little electric charge for you to kill flies, so you don't have to chase it down and smack it like a regular fly swatter. You just have to get it close to the racket, and it kills them because it electrocutes them. So we're talking about life and rebirth and killing bugs.
Well, and the one last thing they talk about here that I thought is, now we talked about this before, but in fact, that was what I think the last one talked about the burdensome,
The
this
burdensome.
we talked wasn't last one we talked about getting rid of the burdening feeling that you might have with your
Oh,
kids,
feeling like a
and they
burden.
talk about that here too, is that as you're wait kind of recharging, getting yourself going, don't be afraid to ask for and help for what you need to get, and don't feel like you're burdened by asking for those favors. um
And on that note of burden, it's also birding season. And birds are amazing creatures. I took my daughter to urgent care because she wasn't feeling good. Here's some bird eggs. See if I can find the camera. Aren't they pretty? Um, they're
or
chocolate covered almonds, but they remind me of bird eggs. And we saw a little bird building a nest up in the sign at the urgent care and just watching him pick up pieces of straw. A friend of mine did a thing at this time of year and put out like little bits of yarn or string for birds to build their nests. Just stopping to watch birds for a little bit can be very relaxing, and meditative. We have a camera. I guess I can't put those back in the bag. I'm going to have to eat these little eggs. Um, we have one of those bird cameras my brother hooked us all up with that it's a bird feeder with the camera on it. And
you can watch them
there's
as
an
they
app
eat
on your
and
phone and you get up close and personal of the birds that land there. If you follow me on Facebook personally, I have a picture of a grackle looking into the camera with a great expression on his face. Um, but stopping and noticing things in nature and just tuning into the different sounds you hear, the different colors of birds that you hear. Our family has gotten into birding, inspired, I think, first by my father, and his love of birds and identifying birds. And my brother's taken it to a whole nother level, and we have kids who enjoy it, photographing birds. But thinking about birds and migrating and seasons and different birds that cross over. It's the way I've connected with my brother over the years of like spotting a bird in the sky, and I'll text him, is this kind of bird or whatever? And he'd like I was trying to identify if something was a hawk or a vulture, and he talked about the flight patterns, the way they fly is differently, and things like that. And learning new things, activating our brain can be a refresh way to start. Learning a new hobby, playing a new game, doing something different, taking a step forward in a new direction can really be helpful to us mentally, emotionally, physically. And
Quiet. The silence of spring.
silence of spring. Ah, today we were going to have a family gathering at our house, but someone's recovering from illness, so we're playing games online in a little bit here tonight. So we want to thank you for joining us on our podcast and talking all things spring. We hope you've enjoyed this fun little podcast. And if you've enjoyed this conversation, if please take a moment, like, subscribe, share this podcast with someone else who might benefit from it. Today's topic was pretty light, but do check out all the different podcasts that we've had. We've covered such a range of topics, dating back to when we began the podcast. I'm not sure how many years that was now, where we were
Wait,
focusing
three
on
and a half,
raising
almost four.
children, covering all things from fostering, adoption to children with special needs, and looking at the kind of the whole picture of the sandwich generation and caring for aging loved ones while also raising children and everything caregiving, really, and self care. So be sure to check out all the different podcasts you have and share things with other people that you think might benefit. If you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, panic by your daily routine, oh no, it's spring, I have to clean. What am I going to do? Check out Don's EFT Discovery Series. EFT tapping
Yes.
is described by some as weird, but once they do it, they're like, hey, this works. Um, what can EFT do for you? So check that out. For wellness tips, caregiver resources, and more episodes, visit focusedhealthyfamily.com. You can go directly to focusedhealthyfamilypodcast.com. You can connect with us on social media. We're on Facebook. Our Instagram is Focused Healthy Family 1. We're on YouTube. You can listen to our podcast anywhere you hear podcasts, as well as listen and or watch on YouTube. Our episodes are released every Thursday, so tune in. And remember that Don is available to speak to organizations and caregiver groups, healthcare teams, and community groups about practical ways to reduce stress and build resilience in caregiving environments. For information about booking Don to speak at your location, please reach out to schedule a presentation or a workshop. And remember, how you speak to your children and your loved ones today shapes their future and yours.